Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. My email is tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a model line launched in 2007 and one of the earliest versions of the Bethune DB25 family. This is the DB25 Power Reserve, 44 millimeters in white gold, with a unique early micro-light blued titanium dial. So let's start with the basics, the size. 44 millimeter case. It's a thin watch for its span at 11.6 millimeters thick and from lug to lug 51 millimeters with a 24 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see it's a good fit. I recommend this watch for a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger. There are 40 millimeter DB25s and we do have those. Those are more suitable for smaller wrists. The 44 is large, but not bulky, as it's a slim profile that easily fits underneath a dress cuff, and you can see it is a low slung with a domed bezel, so a tight sleeve is not a problem. The further I move from the camera, the better you can see the proportion of the watch in relation to my wrist, and it really is a good match on a 16 centimeter wrist. Taking a look at the strap, as you can see, this is an earlier de Bethune strap. Today, the strap would feature small round scale gator on the bottom and large rectangular scale gator on the top. The gator on the top and the cav on the bottom proves that this is a bit of a collectible piece. I would actually recommend getting a modern DB strap and keeping this original strap because this piece as cut is no longer made. So it's a nice heritage piece on an early version of the DB25. Black on the top, you can see it features a narrow folded edge, a monotone stitch. It is semi-gloss, large rectangular scale gator, and you can see there's a bit of a taper to the strap too, down to the buckle, which is white gold to match the case, and you can see there's a little bit of a streamlined profile or a teardrop profile that matches the lugs, and you can see that one of the last remaining elements of the original 2002 DB1 chronograph, these little torpedo or bullet-shaped caps, the ogival profile on the end of the lug, that reminds you of where David Zanetta's styling efforts with de Bethune began. The lugs are evacuated to make them open and airy and gossamer and give the watch an apparent lightness. Most of the case is of high polish, and you can see there are several character lines that run through the mid-case. The crown is drilled and faceted on its circumference, then polished on its face, and we have a lightly cambered sapphire giving way to a dial that uses de Bethune's patented process for bluing titanium. Now you can see there is a ring printed and superimposed over the outer race. The individual Arabic numerals as well as the ring float above the dial base, and you can see as I move the watch through the light that there really is a three-dimensional layered quality with that metallic ring and then the metallic deposited hours under, or minutes I should say, under that. The minutes are outboard of fired blue titanium cabochon that act as the hour indices, and then the hands at center are black polished. You can see there's satination underneath the individual cabochons that form the stations of the hours. There's also a little bit of height. There's a cylindrical rayhut. You can see that the minute track outboard is on a substantially different plane than the center dial, so there is a layered quality that adds extra depth to this dial. There's a micro light engraving, which is de Bethune's signature reductive dial treatment. Now, most reductive dial treatments are guilloche, rose lathe guilloche. This is still reductively applied like rose lathe guilloche, but instead of a rosette pattern as you might see on some sort of a Cartier, here we have these concentric narrow microlight lines or streaks. We have a power reserve indicator up at 12 o'clock, and that keeps track of the 6 days of manual or automatic wind power reserve. Either one, you can do either one. Manual is more fun if you want to watch the power reserve move. For me, with a watch that has a complication like that, I would like to manually wind my watch every once in a while to enjoy the dynamism of the display. But this is an automatic winding watch, and it uses the 2006 patent automatic winding system from de Bethune, which means you have these cantilevered springs with anti-stiction jewels at center, and they provide shock protection for the center of the winding rotor, so for the bearing. And what this does is it takes up the shock, which allows Denis Flageolet, the visionary watchmaker who runs de Bethune, to use an exceptionally long lever arm, and the longer the lever arm, the more efficient the winding system. Normally it will tax the bearing if you make the system this broad, but thanks to that shock protection system, it's not an issue. We have a platinum mass outboard as we're sparing no expense. We're not using tungsten, we're not using gold. Platinum is more dense, so it's used. Only the finest is used. Black polished screw heads, and then you can see everything that's blue here is once again de Bethune's patented fired blue titanium. We have another patent, 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs. That's what Denny calls triple parachute, inspired by Breguet's shock protection systems. It has two roles, one to protect the watch against shock from vigorous use, and two, to rapidly recenter the balance staff so that the watch can resume keeping good time. You can see that here we have a non-annular balance. It's actually a cruciform double yoke, so it's not a ring. It's got gaps in its outer profile. But then it's primary surfaces are titanium. It's blued titanium, and then at the edge of the cruciform arms we have little bulbs of platinum. So we're maximizing the mass in the rim of the balance, which is best for fine timekeeping. We have a special hairspring that's actually two elements shaped by hand and then clamped together. They give you the concentric breathing properties of an overcoil, which means good timekeeping in any physical position, but they also give you the thinner profile of a flat hairspring and the shock resistance of a flat hairspring. All of this beats away at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and there are two self-adjusting mainspring barrels. That's another patented system. Altogether, the technologies and techniques in this watch are protected by about 6 patents. And then you can see there's a combination of media blasting and then brushing, or straight grained treatment across the bridges. There's another media blasted profile across the base plate, and all of the wheels feature satination, so there is real high horology finish here, in addition to the unconventional elements of the style and the technology. The watch is 30 meters water resistant, so not a diving watch, but De Bethune has the Grand Sport and the Grand Bleu if you want that. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.